Most parents think boosting their child's brain requires more tutoring, more rules, or more pressure. But neuroscience shows the opposite. Some of the most powerful brain-building habits are tiny, invisible, and already happening in your home. In this video, I'll show you 5 simple daily habits that quietly strengthen focus, memory, and emotional intelligence without adding stress to you or your child. Why small habits shape big brains. When people think about brain development, they often imagine big interventions, advanced learning programs, strict routines, or constant stimulation. In reality, the developing brain responds far more powerfully to consistency than intensity. What happens regularly matters more than what happens occasionally, no matter how impressive that occasional effort may seem. A child's brain is shaped through repeated exposure to patterns. Every time a behavior, interaction, or environment is experienced, neural pathways are either strengthened or weakened. This process, known as neural wiring, is driven by repetition. Small habits repeated daily send a clear signal to the brain. This matters. Over time, these repeated signals build stronger connections related to attention, emotional regulation, memory, and learning. This is why short, consistent habits outperform sporadic bursts of effort. Reading for 5 minutes every day wires the brain more effectively than an hour once a week. Calm bedtime routines do more for emotional regulation than occasional strict discipline. The brain adapts to what it can predict. Consistency creates predictability, and predictability allows the brain to organize itself efficiently. Another critical factor is safety. A child's brain prioritizes survival before learning. When the nervous system feels stressed, rushed, or under threat, cognitive resources are redirected away from curiosity and memory formation toward protection. In contrast, when a child feels emotionally safe, supported, heard, and unpressured, the brain becomes more receptive to learning. Safety alone, however, is not enough. Engagement is the second half of the equation. Engagement means interest, interaction, and presence, not constant entertainment. When a child is gently engaged through conversation, play, or exploration, the brain enters a state of readiness where learning happens naturally. This combination, safety plus engagement, creates the optimal condition for brain development. Importantly, these signals do not need to be dramatic. A calm response instead of a raised voice, a predictable routine instead of chaos, a few minutes of focused attention instead of multitasking. These small, repeated moments compound over time. They shape how the brain handles stress, focuses attention, and processes information. This is why tiny habits matter so much. They don't overwhelm the system. They don't create pressure. Instead, they quietly tell the brain that the environment is stable, supportive, and worth engaging with. When that message is repeated day after day, the brain grows stronger, more flexible, and better prepared for learning, without force or overload. In short, big brains are built through small, steady signals, not intensity, not pressure, but consistency, safety, and meaningful engagement.
Habit number 1. Consistent sleep timing. Consistent sleep timing is one of the most powerful yet overlooked habits for supporting a child's brain development. While many parents focus on total sleep hours, the brain is often more sensitive to when sleep happens than to achieving perfect sleep every night. Regular sleep and wake times provide the nervous system with a strong signal of predictability, which directly supports learning, memory, and emotional regulation. Sleep plays a critical role in organizing memory. During sleep, especially deep and REM sleep, the brain processes information gathered during the day. New experiences are sorted, emotional impressions are regulated, and learning is consolidated into long-term memory. When sleep timing is irregular, this process becomes fragmented. Even if a child gets enough hours overall, inconsistent timing can reduce the efficiency of memory consolidation. Learning depends on this overnight organization. A brain that has not fully completed its sleep-driven processing wakes up less prepared to absorb new information. Attention may be reduced, emotional responses may be heightened, and frustration tolerance may be lower. Over time, irregular sleep timing can quietly undermine focus and learning capacity, even in children who appear well-rested on the surface. Timing matters more than perfection because the brain operates on circadian rhythms. These internal clocks regulate hormone release, alertness, and cognitive readiness. When bedtime and wake time are predictable, the brain anticipates sleep and prepares for it. Melatonin release becomes more efficient, sleep onset becomes easier, and transitions between sleep stages improve. This consistency matters far more than occasional late nights or imperfect routines. Predictability is calming to the brain. For a child, knowing when the day ends and when rest begins reduces uncertainty. The nervous system shifts out of vigilance and into regulation. This calm state supports emotional balance and cognitive flexibility. Children who sleep on consistent schedules often show improved mood, better impulse control, and greater readiness to learn, even without changes to diet, screen time, or academic pressure. Importantly, consistent sleep timing does not require rigidity. Life happens. Special events, travel, or disruptions are normal. What matters is the overall pattern, not the exception. A stable sleep window, rather than a strict minute-by-minute schedule, is enough to provide the brain with a sense of order. In the context of brain development, sleep timing is not just about rest, it is about trust. A predictable rhythm tells the brain that rest will happen reliably. When the brain trusts that rest is coming, it can fully engage during the day and fully reset at night. That trust lays the foundation for stronger memory, smoother learning, and better emotional regulation, making consistent sleep timing one of the simplest and most impactful habits a parent can support.
Habit number 2, unstructured child-led play. Unstructured child-led play is one of the most powerful drivers of healthy brain development, yet it is increasingly rare. In a world filled with schedules, lessons, and guided activities, children have fewer opportunities to direct their own play. From a brain development perspective, this matters. When play is self-directed, the brain engages in ways that structured activities simply cannot replicate. Child-led play builds executive function, the set of skills responsible for planning, impulse control, working memory, and flexible thinking. When a child decides what to play, how to play, and when to change the rules, the brain is actively practicing decision-making and self-regulation. There is no external script. The child must hold ideas in mind, manage emotions, and adjust strategies in real time. These are foundational cognitive skills that support learning, behavior, and emotional resilience. Creativity also flourishes during unstructured play. Without predefined outcomes or instructions, the brain is free to explore possibilities. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship. A blanket becomes a cave. This kind of imaginative play strengthens neural networks involved in abstract thinking and mental flexibility. Rather than consuming creativity, the child is producing it. Over time, this strengthens the brain's ability to generate ideas, see alternatives, and think independently. Problem-solving is another critical benefit. In unstructured play, challenges arise naturally. A tower falls, a game doesn't work as planned, a rule creates conflict. Without adult intervention, the child must experiment, adapt, and try again. Each attempt strengthens problem-solving pathways. Importantly, the child learns that difficulty is not a signal to stop, but a cue to adjust. This builds persistence and confidence, skills that transfer directly to academic learning and social situations. Boredom plays a surprisingly important role in this process. When external stimulation is removed, the brain looks inward. Boredom activates imagination by creating a need for engagement. The brain begins to generate ideas to fill the space. This internal motivation is critical for deep creativity and sustained attention. Children who are never bored are rarely self-directed. Those who are allowed to experience boredom often become more inventive and resourceful. Unstructured play also supports emotional regulation. Because the child is in control, the nervous system remains calmer. There is no pressure to perform or meet expectations. This sense of autonomy signals safety to the brain, allowing higher-level cognitive functions to engage fully. Learning happens not because the child is pushed, but because the environment invites exploration. Importantly, unstructured play does not require special toys, programs, or environments. Time, space, and permission are enough. It can happen indoors or outdoors, alone or with others. The key is that the child leads and the adult resists the urge to direct, correct, or optimize. In the context of brain development, unstructured, child-led play is not a break from learning. It is one of the most efficient forms of learning available. By building executive function, strengthening problem-solving, and allowing boredom to spark imagination, this habit quietly supports a stronger, more adaptable brain without pressure or instruction.
Habit number 3. Two-way conversation every day. Daily two-way conversation is one of the most powerful and most underestimated ways to support a child's brain development. While many parents focus on vocabulary exposure, reading volume, or educational content, neuroscience consistently shows that back-and-forth interaction is what most strongly shapes language, thinking, and cognitive growth. It is not how many words a child hears that matters most, but how often they participate in meaningful exchanges. Back-and-forth conversation grows language circuits by actively engaging multiple areas of the brain at once. When a child listens, processes meaning, formulates a response, and speaks, language networks are strengthened through use. Each exchange reinforces neural pathways related to comprehension, expression, memory, and attention. This process is far more effective than passive exposure, such as overhearing adult conversation or watching educational videos. Importantly, these exchanges do not need to be complex or instructional. Simple conversations about everyday experiences, what they noticed, how something felt, what they think might happen next, are enough to activate and reinforce language circuits. The brain learns language through participation, not performance. Listening matters just as much as speaking. When a child feels heard, the brain receives a signal of safety and relevance. Pausing, making eye contact, and responding thoughtfully communicates that the child's thoughts matter. This validation encourages further expression and deeper engagement. In contrast, interrupting, correcting excessively, or rushing the conversation can shut down participation, even if the adult's intention is to help. From a neurological perspective, being listened to strengthens attention and working memory. The child must hold their thought, track the conversation, and adjust based on feedback. This builds cognitive flexibility and executive function alongside language skills. Listening is not a passive act. It is an active cognitive process that supports overall brain development. Emotional connection is the third critical component. When conversation includes warmth, curiosity, and emotional attunement, learning accelerates. Emotional safety reduces stress signaling in the nervous system, allowing higher cognitive functions to engage fully. In a calm, connected state, the brain is more receptive to learning, memory formation, and creative thinking. This is why conversations that happen during shared moments, meal times, walks, bedtime, or play are so impactful. The environment feels safe and unpressured. The child is not being tested or evaluated, they are simply being engaged with. This combination of low pressure and high connection create ideal conditions for cognitive growth. Two-way conversation also supports social and emotional intelligence. Children learn to read cues, take turns, consider perspectives, and regulate emotions through interaction. These skills are deeply intertwined with academic learning and long-term success. Crucially, this habit does not require extra time, special tools, or formal activities. It fits into daily life. What matters is presence. Asking open-ended questions, waiting for the answer, following the child's lead, responding with genuine interest. In the context of brain development, two-way conversation is not just communication, it is construction. Each exchange builds language, attention, emotional regulation, and thinking skills simultaneously. By talking with children rather than at them, parents create a powerful daily signal that supports a smarter, more resilient brain.
Habit number 4. Movement before mental work. Movement before mental work is one of the simplest and most effective ways to support a child's ability to focus, learn, and regulate behavior. Yet it is often overlooked or treated as a distraction rather than a preparation tool. From a neurological perspective, movement is not separate from learning. It is a prerequisite for it. Physical movement increases blood flow to the brain. When a child moves, heart rate rises slightly and circulation improves, delivering more oxygen and nutrients to brain tissue. This increased blood flow supports alertness and primes neural networks involved in attention, memory, and processing speed. A sedentary brain is more likely to feel sluggish and resistant to learning, while a recently activated brain is more responsive and engaged. Movement also stimulates key neurotransmitters, including dopamine and norepinephrine, which play critical roles in attention and motivation. These chemicals help the brain filter distractions, sustain focus, and initiate tasks. Without them, mental work feels harder and requires more effort. Short bursts of movement, such as walking, stretching, light play, or dancing, can significantly improve a child's readiness to concentrate, even before brief learning sessions. Attention and impulse control are particularly sensitive to movement. The areas of the brain responsible for self-regulation, such as the prefrontal cortex, function best when the nervous system is balanced rather than overstimulated or under-aroused. Movement helps regulate this balance. It releases excess energy, reduces restlessness, and allows the brain to settle into a focused state. This is especially important for children who struggle with sitting still or transitioning into quiet activities. Importantly, movement does not need to be intense or structured to be effective. It does not require sports, drills, or formal exercise. Gentle, playful movement is often enough. Jumping, climbing, swinging, walking, or even brief free play can reset the nervous system and prepare the brain for learning. The goal is not fatigue, it is regulation. Movement also supports learning by integrating the brain and body. Many cognitive processes are embodied, meaning they are strengthened when physical experience supports mental activity. Spatial awareness, sequencing, and problem-solving all benefit from movement-based input. When a child moves before learning, the brain has more reference points to anchor new information. Crucially, movement before mental work reduces friction. Instead of forcing focus through pressure or repeated instructions, movement creates the conditions where focus emerges naturally. Children are less resistant, less frustrated, and more capable of engaging with tasks after their bodies have had a chance to move. Movement before mental work reframes movement as preparation rather than interruption. A short walk before reading, play before homework,
or stretching before quiet time can make learning smoother and more effective. Over time, this pattern teaches the brain that learning follows regulation, not restraint. In the context of brain development, movement before mental work is not about burning energy, it is about organizing it. By increasing blood flow, improving attention and impulse control, and preparing the nervous system for engagement, movement becomes a powerful, low-effort tool for helping children learn better, without force, pressure, or struggle.
Habit number 5. Emotional safety first. Emotional safety is the foundation upon which all learning is built. No habit, strategy, or educational tool can compensate for a brain that feels threatened, rushed, or emotionally unsafe. From a neurological perspective, learning is not primarily an intellectual process, it is a state-dependent one. The brain must feel safe before it can effectively absorb, process, and retain information. Stress directly blocks learning. When a child experiences stress, whether from pressure, fear of failure, criticism, unpredictability, or emotional disconnection, the nervous system shifts into a protective mode. In this state, cognitive resources are redirected away from learning and toward survival. The brain prioritizes vigilance over curiosity. Memory formation, attention, and problem-solving all become less efficient. This is not defiance or laziness, it is biology. A calm brain learns faster because it has access to higher cognitive functions. When the nervous system is regulated, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reasoning, impulse control, and flexible thinking, can fully engage. In this state, children are better able to focus, reflect, and adapt. Learning feels easier, not because the material is simpler, but because the brain is available for it. Emotional safety is created through connection, predictability, and responsiveness. Simple behaviors such as speaking calmly, validating feelings, maintaining consistent routines, and offering reassurance send powerful signals of safety to the brain. These signals reduce stress hormones and allow the nervous system to downshift out of fight or flight. Once this happens, learning pathways reopen naturally. This is why regulation must come before correction. Attempting to teach, discipline, or correct behavior while a child is dysregulated is rarely effective. In a stressed state, the brain cannot integrate feedback constructively. Correction feels like threat, not guidance. By contrast, when a child is first helped to calm through presence, empathy, and support, the brain becomes receptive. Only then can guidance or instruction be absorbed. Importantly, emotional safety does not mean the absence of boundaries. It means that boundaries are delivered in a way that preserves connection. Clear expectations paired with calm delivery create structure without triggering threat. This combination supports both emotional regulation and learning. Emotional safety also builds long-term resilience. Children who consistently experience safety during challenges learn that mistakes are manageable and stress is temporary. This shapes how the brain responds to difficulty over time. Instead of shutting down or reacting impulsively, the brain learns to stay engaged and adaptive. In the context of brain development, emotional safety is not a soft or optional factor. It is a biological requirement. Stress blocks learning. Calm brains learn faster, and regulation must come before correction. When these principles are respected, learning becomes more efficient, behavior becomes more flexible, and the brain develops in a way that supports both intelligence and emotional health.
By prioritizing emotional safety first, parents and caregivers create an environment where learning is not forced but invited, and where the brain is free to grow at its full potential.
Why these habits work together. Each of these habits, consistent sleep timing, unstructured play, two-way conversation, movement before mental work, and emotional safety, is powerful on its own. But their true impact comes from how they work together as a system. They do not target isolated skills. They stabilize the nervous system, and that stability is what allows learning, behavior, and cognition to develop optimally over time. At the core, all 5 habits send the same message to the brain. The environment is safe, predictable, and responsive. The nervous system is constantly scanning for cues of threat or stability. When routines are inconsistent, stress is high, or expectations feel overwhelming, the brain shifts into a protective mode. In that state, learning becomes secondary. These habits counter that response by consistently reducing uncertainty and physiological stress. Consistent sleep timing regulates circadian rhythms and stress hormones, allowing the nervous system to reset daily. Unstructured, child-led play provides autonomy and control, signaling safety and reducing pressure. Two-way conversation strengthens connection and emotional attunement, reinforcing the sense that the child is heard and supported. Movement before mental work helps regulate arousal levels so the brain is neither overstimulated nor underengaged. Emotional safety ties everything together by ensuring that challenges do not feel threatening. When these signals are repeated, the nervous system becomes more stable overall. Stress responses are less easily triggered. Recovery happens more efficiently. The brain spends less time in vigilance and more time in curiosity, exploration, and integration. This is the state in which learning improves naturally, not because the child is trying harder, but because the brain is available. Learning improves when the brain feels safe because higher cognitive functions depend on regulation. Attention, memory, impulse control, and flexible thinking all rely on a well-regulated nervous system. A brain that feels unsafe may still comply, but it does not adapt efficiently. A brain that feels safe can experiment, make mistakes, and integrate feedback. This is where durable learning happens. What makes these habits especially powerful is their cumulative effect. None of them require intensity, pressure, or perfection. They are small, repeatable signals that compound over years. A predictable bedtime tonight, a few minutes of conversation today, movement before learning this afternoon, calm responses during stress. Each instance may seem minor, but together they shape how the brain develops its default response to the world. Over time, these habits build a nervous system that is resilient rather than reactive. Children become better able to regulate emotions, sustain attention, and adapt to challenges. These traits do not appear overnight, but they are remarkably durable once established. In short, these habits work together because they address the same root requirement from different angles: safety. When safety is consistent, learning accelerates. And when small habits reinforce that safety day after day, their impact compounds quietly, shaping not just how a child learns, but how their brain grows for years to come. Common parenting myths. Brief. Many well-intentioned parenting strategies are based on myths that sound productive but quietly work against how a child's brain actually develops. Understanding these misconceptions helps parents shift from doing more to doing what truly matters. More activities does not equal better brain. It is easy to assume that enrolling children in more classes, lessons, and enrichment activities will accelerate brain development.
In reality, the brain does not grow stronger through constant stimulation. It grows through integration. When schedules are overloaded, the nervous system remains in a state of mild stress, leaving less capacity for consolidation and deep learning. Downtime, unstructured play, and predictable routines allow the brain to process experiences, strengthen neural connections, and recover. Quality and consistency matter far more than quantity. Pressure does not equal focus. Pressure is often mistaken for motivation. While short bursts of urgency can temporarily increase output, chronic pressure narrows attention rather than strengthening it. Under pressure, the brain prioritizes avoiding mistakes over exploring solutions. This reduces creativity, flexibility, and long-term retention. True focus emerges when the nervous system is regulated. A calm, supported brain can sustain attention far longer than a stressed one, without the emotional cost. Calm does not equal permissive. A common fear is that calm parenting means a lack of boundaries or discipline. In reality, calm is what allows boundaries to work. When expectations are delivered without threat, the brain can process guidance rather than react defensively. Calm authority provides structure while preserving emotional safety. This teaches children self-regulation instead of compliance driven by fear. Boundaries paired with calm build respect, resilience, and internal control. In short, more stimulation does not equal better learning. Pressure does not create true focus, and calm does not weaken authority. These myths persist because they look productive on the surface, but brain science shows that stability, regulation, and safety are what allow children to grow smarter, more focused, and more resilient over time.
Key takeaway. The most important insight for parents is this: you do not need to do more to support your child's brain. You need to do less, but do it consistently. Modern parenting culture often equates good parenting with constant activity, optimization, and stimulation. In reality, the developing brain thrives on stability, predictability, and repeated signals of safety. Doing more can unintentionally overwhelm the nervous system. More activities, more pressure, more correction, and more structure may look productive, but they often fragment attention and increase stress. When the brain is busy managing overload, it has fewer resources available for learning, integration, and growth. Reducing excess input creates space for the brain to do what it does best: adapt, organize, and strengthen connections. Consistency matters more than intensity because the brain learns through repetition. Tiny habits repeated daily, predictable sleep timing, brief moments of conversation, unstructured play, movement before learning, and calm emotional responses send clear, reliable signals to the nervous system. These signals tell the brain that the environment is stable and safe. Over time, this message becomes the brain's default expectation. Doing less does not mean being passive or disengaged. It means being intentional. It means choosing habits that support regulation rather than reactivity. A few minutes of presence is more powerful than hours of forced activity. A calm response during stress shapes the brain more than a perfectly planned lesson delivered under pressure. Tiny habits create lifelong cognitive strength because they compound. Each small, consistent action strengthens neural pathways related to attention, emotional regulation, resilience, and learning. These changes may not be visible immediately, but they are durable. They shape how the brain responds to challenge, stress, and opportunity across years, not days. When parents shift their focus from doing more to doing what works consistently, the pressure lifts for both the child and the caregiver. Learning becomes more natural, behavior becomes more flexible, growth becomes sustainable.
The takeaway is simple but powerful. Fewer habits, practiced reliably, will do more for your child's brain than any complex system ever could. Small, steady signals build strong brains for life.
If you want parenting guidance grounded in real brain science, not trends, pressure, or perfection, consider subscribing. This channel focuses on understanding how children actually develop, so you can support your child's brain with clarity instead of stress. If this message resonated, share it with the parent who worries they're not doing enough. Many caregivers carry quiet guilt, believing they need to add more activities, more structure, or more pressure to help their child succeed. Often, the most helpful reassurance is knowing that small, steady habits are already doing far more than they realize. In the next video, we'll explore the opposite side of this conversation, everyday habits that quietly damage focus and learning, even though they look harmless or productive on the surface, and, more importantly, how to fix them without adding more work or conflict.